So, good afternoon to all the joiners from East Africa, Qatar, and Mauritius, and good morning to all the attendees from West and South Africa region. Myself, Nikhil from SISA business team. Trust you all are doing well and safe back home. First of all, thanks for accommodating your valuable time for this webinar session. As I said, when I reach out to most of you people, this session will be very informative and helpful for all of you to understand the security threats faced by the organization during high risk time, or I can say a pandemic time. Breach scenarios, how important the monitoring of endpoints would be, and also assist you to know the security best practices to protect your IT environment and infrastructure. Just to brief quickly about SISA, as you all know, SISA is a payment security specialist, the PCI QSA, and a market leader in cybersecurity domain. We are a PCI Security Standard Council accredited payment forensic investigator, having presence in 50 plus countries and securing more than 600 customers as of now. Since CISA is a forensic driven cybersecurity company, we leverage our forensic intelligence to help the organization to improve their security posture with wide range of security compliances offerings like various audits and assurance, strategic advisories, security testing like VAPT, code review, etc. Cybersecurity products like data discovery, risk assessment tools, security operations center, SIM, and best practices trainings as well. Let me quickly introduce to my colleague and our today's webinar speaker and CISA's principal consultant, Kaushik Pandey.
All right, so thanks a lot, team, for joining in, and really sorry. We know that we are around 20 minutes late for the same. Sincere apologies for that. Let's quickly start this particular session over here. So basically, as many of you, and of course, the context has already been given by Mr. Nikhil over here. And as you guys understand as well, that the cybersecurity right now is going through a major crisis, especially during this particular pandemic. And that is the very reason why exactly we have come up with this particular session on MDR to the rescue during this particular pandemic. So how exactly we have structured the entire session is that, first of all, we'll be talking about the current scenario, that, okay, what will challenges, what will things the organizations are facing as of now. Post which we'll be talking about a few of the threats which the organizations are facing. The threats start from phishing to spams to malware and the ransomware. Post which we'll be talking about, let's say, the Q&A, if let's say you have any questions. So that's how we have set up the entire, you can say, session over here. That in between we are having a few pointers where we'll pause and we'll request you to ask questions and answers, or let's say if you have any clarifications to be done. And I believe something which has already been told by Mr. Nikhil over here would be that, let's say you have a Q&A section at the bottom of your screen, and accordingly you can go ahead and ask us questions on whatever you have over there. So, so based upon that particular thing, the first Q&A, we'll be going ahead with real-time threat scenarios. So in the case of real-time threat scenarios, what we'll be doing is that we'll be taking a few case studies, like a few of the attacks which have been done where attackers were impersonating like a government agency, like a shipment agency. They were trying to sell, let's say, a vaccine, a few more scenarios, and then we'll be covering a few more encryption techniques at that time. So once we have set the context, once we have understood that, okay, why exactly MDR or let's say EDR solution is the need of the hour, then basically we will be diving deep into the MDR, that is the managed detection response. So first of all, we'll see that, okay, what exactly is an MDR, how exactly market is being driving right now with respect to the latest threats, vulnerabilities, and all those things, and how exactly MDR has come to the rescue. Post which we'll be going one step further and we'll be describing about the EDR solution, that is the endpoint detection response, which is, you can say, a hybrid approach towards securing your organization, especially during the remote workforce era, which we are in right now. Post which, finally, we'll be ending the session with the solutions. that, okay, what all different types of solutions you will be able to put across inside your organization so that you can reduce the risk exposure area as much as you can at the end of the day. So without wasting further things over here, let's try and understand that what exactly is happening today. We can see that, okay, remote working is the new normal. Most of the organizations, or let's say majority of the organizations, are leveraging digital means to disseminate critical data during remote working. However, it also gives, or let's say it also exposes much of the PII, much of the critical data across the internet as well. And that is what even the study says. A recent study which was conducted for majority of the IT security professionals, they found out that 65% out of around 300, you can say, odd employees were accessing data, were accessing files which were not prescribed based upon their need-to-know basis. That is the very reason that why data security often goes questionable when tons of data gets transferred across a myriad of devices. You can also see that today there are so many commercial password managers which are basically nothing but a vulnerable fake application. Many of these vulnerable fake applications are ransomwares, many of these are malwares, many of these are trojans and whatnot. And if you'll see that in 3 days, and not more than 3 days, organizations are getting breached with respect to ransomware. Now, the attackers are not wasting even a single second. As soon as they infiltrate into the organizations, they are deploying the ransomware, they are deploying the malware across the organization, which is quite scary. This is one of the studies which we saw where around 85% of the remote users report that they sometimes go directly to the internet. Now, as soon as you're increasing the risk exposure area and giving an internet access to each and every employee, let's say who are working remotely, you yourself can understand what exactly, let's say, that can open, or let's say what exactly that particular, you can say, the workforce can open the challenges for the entire organization. 68% of these branch offices and roaming users were the source of compromise in recent attacks. And this is a particular study which has been done by Cisco. And 79% of the organizations are shifting to direct internet access. So what do you mean by direct internet access? It means that, let's say, till yesterday, you were accessing the customer's infrastructure, or let's say even your infrastructure, we are going via the, let's say, the ODC setup. However, now most of the organizations have opened the barriers and saying that, okay, you can connect directly with the clients or with the customer's infrastructure without even going through the ODC. You can have a direct connection, which again increases the risk exposure area. And on your left-hand side, you can see that based upon the entire globe, with respect to domains, that is the finance, insurance, or government, healthcare, how many users, or let's say how many percentage of people were using remote working even before this particular pandemic started. So you'll see the Australia, Asia, Africa, where Africa, around 17% of the finance or the insurance industry was working remotely, even before the pandemic started. Whereas if we compare, let's say, North America and South America, around 10%, around 8% of the finance and the insurance industry were actually, or let's say, have actually gone through and implemented these particular different types of solutions across. So what exactly is happening right now? Based upon this remote workforce, based upon these different types of, let's say, the endpoints which are now connected to the critical data centers, to the critical environment directly, the cyber criminals, the cyber, you can say, the intruders, have got immense access to plethora of information. And that is the very reason why you'll see that the attackers right now are seriously targeting the work from home agents, or let's say their devices, the endpoints, because they do understand that these endpoints in majority of the cases are not even getting monitored. Because when organizations were basically talking about endpoints, they were thinking that, okay, I have everything, or let's say I have all the controls set up in my cloud, or let's say I have all the controls set up in my data center or on the servers. Why do I even need to bother about my endpoint? And that is what these types of attackers are leveraging at the end of the day. So if you'll see on the right hand of the screen over here, It just gives you a basic, you can say, knowledge about how exactly organizations' endpoints can be compromised today with a simple backdoor shell, or let's say with a simple remote file inclusion attack, where the attacker will use a search engine, or let's say will use scanners to identify a few of the vulnerable websites. They will deploy the, let's say, a piece of code, which you can call malware, or let's say anything else, on that particular, let's say, the web URL. Now, as soon as your agent, or let's say as soon as your endpoint, as soon as you as a customer will access that particular web URL, that particular system will get compromised. And accordingly, the passwords, information, everything will get compromised at the end of the day. So with a backdoor shell, what exactly that particular guy did was that it compromised the site, it compromised the server because it was able to hijack the server as well. And this particular server, they might be using for different DDoS attacks, for different distributed denial of service attacks. At the end of the day, of course, your passwords and information are also stolen. So you can understand that with these many challenges right now across the market, it is very essential for you and me, or let's say your organization, and we as a cybersecurity, you can say, professionals, to secure the customer's data. However, right now, if you'll see, around 65.7% of the time, spam emails are intruding our webs. Malwares are affecting around 26.8%. And when we are talking about spam emails, we're talking about business email compromises, BECs. Now, what exactly is a BEC? BECs are like, let's say, if let's say you report directly to your C-level executive management. Now, the intruder will first of all not directly compromise the C-level executive management. They will first of all try to compromise you. They will try to infiltrate, let's say, through your system, because they understand that if an email goes from you directly to the C-level executive management, they will see that, okay, it's a legit traffic, it's a legitimate traffic, and accordingly, they will just open any attachment, whatever you are sending to them. And that is what basically happens in any of, or let's say in majority of the attacks. In the words of Benjamin Franklin, if you fail to plan, you're planning to fail. And that is really, really necessary in the current era, in the current scenario. That majority of the organizations right now, we never even planned for this particular kind of pandemic. And that is why majority of our IT infrastructure has failed at the end of the day. So what are different types of threat actors right now are available in the market? There are phishing, there are phishing attacks, malware attacks, ransomware, malicious domains, business email compromises, and the others as well. And if you'll see the market, if you'll see that, okay, what exactly, or say how much percentage of these threats are available globally in the market, around 65% of them are actually phishing emails. Now, phishing emails, one, let's say if we have to appreciate this particular threat, one particular thing is that phishing itself, let's say attack itself, will not cause that much damage. But the payloads which it carries with it, once it tries and infect the system, will be a disaster for you. Majority of the ransomware attacks, majority of the malwares, whatever has been, you can say, deployed across the organizations through which the organization have been compromised, let's say the source of that particular infection was always, or let's say in 90% of the cases, was a phishing attack. And that's something which we'll see as well in some time when we discuss the case study. So 65% of these types of threats contribute to phishing. 26% of them are malware. And as I said earlier, these malwares are actually a part of these phishing emails which are being sent over there. Around 7.5% of them are ransomware and 1.5% are the other scams. So let's understand what's a phishing, right? So phishing is when a particular person, a particular intruder is pretending to be a legit organization, or let's say a legit person, and accordingly is trying to collect valuable information. Now, I don't know how many of you have actually gone through a recent, not a recent, but yeah, it's around, let's say, I think 1 or 2 years back, that there's a particular application known as deepfake. So what it does is that it tries to impersonate the identity of an individual. And that is, I'll tell you guys, that is actually a valid and actually a copyrighted application which is available over the web, and all of us can use it as well. Okay, they are basically saying to prank and let's say to do other things. However, it can be used in a majority of the phishing cases at the end of the day. So how exactly a phishing works? Basically, first of all, the intruder will get the list of majority of the compromised email accounts. Accordingly, it will push new versions of malware on a particular server. Now, this particular server, let's say the intruder, or let's say the compromised, you can say personnel, will not have a direct contact. Because first of all, this particular intruder, what he'll do is that he will send, let's say, a phishing email to any of the people and accordingly infect or compromise their system. Now, let's say they performed a phishing attack on any one of the organization systems, okay, and that particular system opened a backdoor with this particular server, which they are calling over here drop zone or a CNC server, a command control server. Now, all the data from this particular first victim actually got compromised. All this data went to that particular CNC server drop zones, which actually has been, or let's say, which already has been compromised by that particular intruder. Now, once, let's say, this entire account credentials and everything got compromised, now the attacker has a hell lot of, we can say, account credentials, email IDs, user IDs, passwords, and everything with them. The next step, what he'll do is that now that particular intruder will impersonate as the first victim. That is, that particular intruder will impersonate that, okay, they are the direct reportees of the C-level executives. And that is where they will directly target these high-profile victims, using which they'll be able to compromise these high-profile victims, their usernames, their passwords, their credentials, and the financial data at the end of the day. So that is something which is phishing, and you can say that there are different types of phishing which are, we can say, available right now. However, these types of the business email compromise types of phishing is one of the, you can say, majority, or let's say, is compromising the organizations at a far greater level as compared to the other types of phishing as of now. The next, as we saw that, okay, one of them was phishing, the other was spams, the spam email which all of us get at the end of the day. We have filters on our, you can say, web mails where there's a split folder for spams, and all the, you can say, all the advertisements, all the, you can say, fake email IDs or something like that goes down to the spam folder directly. Or let's say if anybody is trying to market or let's say advertise something, then even that particular thing goes to the spam. So how exactly this particular spam works? So again, the similar case like a phishing, spam also will be the source of any of the attacks. They itself will not be an attack, but they will be the source of the attacks. Like for example, over here, let's say using a social network or let's say using a spam email, they will try and get, let's say a particular site with exploit kits. Means they will be, let's say, deploying exploit kits on a particular site, and accordingly the computers will get infected. So these are malwares basically, which will be a part of those spam emails. And if you download that particular malware, then of course your organization or let's say your systems have got compromised. And many a times what we have seen is that the intruders actually compromise a particular endpoint, a particular system at the end of the day. And then they do, let's say, a lateral movement across the different systems. And as majority of the organizations give access internally to the critical servers as well, that is, let's say, a management VLAN or something like that will have an access, or let's say direct access to, let's say, the scope servers, the critical servers. So it's very easy for these types of attackers to basically go ahead and compromise the critical servers, or let's say the servers which might be having an asset value of 4 or 5 based upon the ISO 27005 risk assessment. So that is basically a spam. which let's say spreads false information. They will say that okay, they are representing something else. However, later you'll get to know that okay, they were just the malware carrying payloads. So in the recent case study, around 199,000, or let's say close to 200,000 spam emails were sent, where majority of them was spent to United Kingdom. And the spam, or let's say the mail filters, the web mail filters, which were configured across the different states, or let's say different countries, around 81,315 were actually malicious files. That is out of 199,000, 81,000, which is close to around, let's say, more than around 50%. Of these types of attacks had the malicious file detections. Now, first of all, these are detected. It might have been possible that these types of, let's say, these spam emails would have contained a malware, and that would have exfiltrated and went inside the organization, wouldn't have been detected as well. However, 81,315 were detected, across which United States detected the top of it. There's 26.6% malicious file detections. So even with this particular knowledge, you can see that what exactly is the target of the cyber attackers, or let's say of the cyber intruders. Means they are trying to target United States more than they are coming down to France, then they're coming to Canada, Australia, United Kingdom and all. And as you can see, majority of these countries have been affected by COVID-19 quite a lot. So they know, they understand, they acknowledge the particular fact that the organizations, these types of organizations, might not be, let's say, focusing that much on cybersecurity, because they are, let's say, impose, or let's say have implemented the entire workforce towards resolving this particular pandemic. And that is the reason why the cyber attackers are basically focusing on these types of organizations at the end of the day. So that was something with respect to spam. The next comes the malware. So I know that, okay, majority of you, let's say all of you will be knowing that, okay, what exactly is a malware. So basically the malware will be, let's say, a piece of code which will come as a part of the spam emails, or let's say a phishing attack or something like that, and will be able to exploit any of the systems. Now, malware is not subject to, let's say, only a particular, let's say, server, or let's say an endpoint. It is subject to anything, any server, any system, anything like that. And accordingly, it might open a backdoor, which can connect with a third party at the backend, let's say with an intruder at the backend, or it might just exfiltrate the entire data from your system and take it outside. Next comes ransomware. Now, ransomware is something I believe that all of us have seen in the past, you can say 10, 15 days, or let's say maybe 1 month or 2 months. That majority of the, or let's say many of the organizations are getting hit by ransomware. So how exactly it goes? First of all, the attacker will identify a particular victim or a victim organization, and will see that which all websites those guys are visiting. They will tell that particular site that, okay, does this particular site has a few vulnerabilities or not? They will inject a code on the particular vulnerable website. The user, as soon as they go ahead and visit that compromised website, they will be redirected to a third-party server, let's say the attacker server. Now, the attacker server will basically download a particular binary file, or let's say a particular executable on that particular system, on the particular endpoint. As soon as it gets downloaded and executed on that particular system, the encryptions are negotiated. Means what all encryptions, or what all things that particular system can the particular system support, and accordingly the data gets encrypted. And then that particular intruder asks for ransom so as to decrypt that particular kind of information. Now, ransomware is not just basically that, okay, you will go and visit the particular infected website, only then it can happen. No. Even with respect to phishing, even with respect to spams as well, the ransomware can happen. That is, even let's say a spam email might contain an executable, let's say might contain a binary code, using which, if it gets downloaded and executed on your system, will basically encrypt majority of the data. Now, one thing to be kept in the mind over here in the case of especially the ransomware attacks is that organizations who have taken backups, organizations who have encrypted the data at rest already, let's say have got much less fines, or let's say much less exposure as compared to the others. The organizations who have actually gone ahead and their entire data was in clear text and all those things were basically the most affected at the end. That's how the ransomware is going around today. So let's understand all of these different types of threats with a scenario. And this is an actual scenario, or let's say this is actually let's say a hack, or let's say a payment security breach which happened. So basically, a hacker group compromised one of the banking institutions branch, specifically based in London, with a phishing attack. Now, as you can see that, okay, it was an email phishing attack. Through the email, a particular phishing attack came where somebody was trying to impersonate something else. Now, that particular London branch, that employee got compromised, and accordingly, their system got compromised. Now, as I told you earlier as well, that there's a lateral movement which is possible from that particular endpoint to any other server or system in the same branch. And that is how that particular malware went and exploited the voice recording system as well. Now, as many of you might be knowing, that most of the branches, these types of branches, the banking institution branches, are connected via lease line with their central infrastructure, or let's say with their data center at the end of the day, where all the different types of applications like core bank system, card management system, and the others will be hosted. And the same thing was here as well. That is, a leased line connection was there with their HQ, with their headquarters, or let's say with their HQ data center. Now, majority of the institutions, what happens is that when a particular traffic is coming from the branch, what they think is that my branch traffic is already legit, is already legitimate in nature. So I do not need to have filtrations over here. And that is the very reason why they didn't had an IDS or an IPS solution over here. They didn't even had a WAF or let's say any other technologies whatsoever, because they considered this particular traffic to be trusted, and accordingly they allowed it. And that is the very reason why that particular malware came inside and infected the server. Now, as soon as it infected the server, it went around with respect to, let's say, performing let's say a RAM scrapping, or let's say it read that particular RAM and accordingly got hold of the admin credentials. As soon as it got hold of the admin credentials, it went to the ATM update server. Now, the ATM update server is something which will be hosted in a data center backend and will be connected with all the ATMs wherever they are being deployed. Now, this particular false package was basically uploaded on the ATM update server. And this particular, let's say, malware also opened a telnet connection on ATMs for remote control. Now, as soon as the telnet was enabled, that particular intruder was able to, you can say, administer the ATMs remotely from these, let's say, the infected servers. And they run many tests, they deployed a few malwares on it. And how exactly so what exactly was the functionality of that malware? That particular malware used to help dispense the cash from these ATMs without even authorizing that particular customer, without even authorizing that particular user. So what they used to do is that, let's say, whenever the intruder, whenever the attacker was going to that particular ATM, at that time they used to run that particular executable, the particular code, and accordingly they were able to exfiltrate the entire money. And that was not all. Even after the exfiltration was done, they remotely wiped all the malicious programs and logged off, so that nobody would be able to get hold of their traces as well. Now, over here, if you'll see, we have a phishing. We have a phishing email. That might have been, let's say, a spam email as well at the end of the day. We also have a malware over here. Okay, it's not a ransomware because they didn't encrypt anything, but yes, all the other different types of threats which we just discussed have been, you can say, covered in the entire scenario. And this is just one of the scenarios. If you'll go ahead and see majority of the, let's say, the cases which are happening across the world, 91% of these types of cyber attacks are starting with a phishing email. And if you'll see the global data, then through the emails, around 70% in 2018 and 19, or say even 20 as well, around 70% of the malwares are coming via the emails. The same number of malwares are, let's say, coming through the web as well. And whereas just a minority of not more than 10 to 15% of the malwares are coming via the IMs, that is the instant messaging channels. So based upon this entire data, we can understand that these types of threat vectors, these types of threat attackers are using each and every means to compromise the system. And they are basically starting from the endpoint. They are basically starting from the desktop, from the laptops and all. So how much critical our systems, our users become at the end of the day? That is something which we have to really take care of. Now, on that particular note, we'll pause for 2 minutes. We'll wait if you guys have any questions, any clarifications, so that accordingly we can answer things over here. So in the meantime, let's say the others gather your questions and ask us. Let's see a few stats which we are presenting right now on the screen. So basically, if you'll see majority of, so this is the stats from let's say a particular SAM study which was done on many of the organizations, and what they understood was that 91% of the organizations said that okay, there's a shortage in reporting capabilities. Means when exactly an incident occurs, when exactly it's being reported across, or let's say when exactly a security anomaly is reported. So 91% said that okay, there's a shortage in even reporting capability. They are not able to report these types of critical incidents. Around 87% of them said that okay, they lack even the visibility into the risk exposure. That okay, what exactly is the risk exposure area of that particular organization? How much type, or let's say, what are different types of threat attackers or the threat vectors are actually susceptible over there? Now, what exactly does that mean is we saw a few other threat vectors over here like phishing, malware, spams, and all those things. The organization need to understand that if this particular type of ransomware, if this particular type of phishing, if this big malwares impacted their organization, then do they have the secure means so as to prevent their organization or to detect and respond to these types of attacks or not? So they didn't even have the, you can say, the visibility for the same. 81% of them reported that, okay, they were unable to detect any new threats that doesn't catch, and 78% of them said that they had a very poor rate of detection. And 75% report that there are remediation failures as well. As a result, means they are not able to even remediate the vulnerabilities, or let's say the malwares which they are, you can say, finding out at the end of the day. And that is the way reason why you will see that in between the graph shows that the dedicated prevention team, the dedicated detection team, the dedicated intelligence, the response, the remediation, majority of the organizations do not even have that. So the red bar, which you can see it on your screen, the majority of the organizations do not even have these types of teams. So around 30% of them are saying that, okay, I do not even have a dedicated prevention team, a dedicated detection and intelligence or response and remediation, which opens so much caveats for the entire globe. And this particular case study, this particular research is globally available. It means even the cyber attackers are reading as and when you and me are reading. So they also know that, okay, if they do not have dedicated teams like this, then of course, whatever they do, nobody will be able to understand, or say nobody will be able to respond within the stipulated time period. So we have got one question over here. which says that what are the proper approach to mitigate the risk of infection. So this is something which we have covered in the last slide, or let's say in the last section. However, let's say securely patching all these you can say types of vulnerabilities, starting from the operating system layer to the endpoints, to each and every application, a third-party application which is deployed across the industry. Apart from having an EDR solutions, an endpoint detection and response solution, the endpoint, you can say solutions like, let's say, your network threat prevention software, your anti-malwares. Okay, many of the organizations are also going ahead and deploying AI-based solutions as well. Okay, so these are a few of, let's say, the critical control techniques using which you will be able to reduce the risk exposure area over here. However, we have covered it lately as well in the last section. Especially for 0-day, yes, if you're having an AI-based solution, then there's a high probability that even a 0-day attack would be, you can say, you might be saved from a 0-day attack if you're using an AI or let's say an ML-based solution. However, if you are using a normal, you can say a signature-based antivirus, then it might not save you from a 0-day attack, because the signature, that particular, of course, the signature base will not have the signature with respect to a 0-day attack over there. So I hope I was able to answer the question over there. Alrighty, let's resume now. Let's go ahead. So let's see a few of the real-time case studies. These are a few of the worst data breaches which have happened in the, I'll not say even the past 10 years, but 10 to 15 years, basically, where you'll see that let's say the Yahoo in 2013, around 3 billion records were exposed. And again, 2014, around, let's say around 500 million of, let's say the users, or let's say the records were exposed. Similarly, Equifax, Facebook, and the others are in line. Whereas the recent one, the Marriott, around 500 million, you can say the accounts or the records were exposed. And I don't know how many of you know about the Marriott story or not, but it was basically the challenge with respect to supply chain management, because they basically acquired a particular institution between 2014, 15, something like that. And the due diligence, I guess, was not performed that let's say deeply, because of which that particular intruder, the malware, was still there in the data centers or in those compromised systems. And that particular intruder was still exfiltrating the data from that particular time period. Okay, so that is one of the risks. And we have also got one more question. We'll be answering it in the next Q&A session. So please bear with us. Okay, so what exactly these data breaches tell us? It says that even though all the organizations are seeing the stats, all the organizations are seeing that, okay, these types of different types of threats, these are vulnerabilities and all those things are happening in the market, but majority of the organizations are not even taking a learning from it. They are not implementing solutions. They are still not patching their servers, because they're saying that, okay, my business has to run, so I cannot have a downtime. They're not having dedicated teams for incident response. They are not having dedicated teams for monitoring of these systems. They're not spending, let's say, that much money on any of the endpoint, you can say, systems protection. And in majority of the cases, that is where the breach actually started with. And I believe many of you might know that, okay, that's how even the target breach started, where their service provider, the Fazio Mechanical Services, the particular system got compromised with a phishing email. And accordingly, the Citadel Trojan, let's say, was, installed on the system. It exfiltrated, or let's say it had lateral movement. And then accordingly, it went ahead and deployed black POS RAM malware on each and every POS device. And accordingly, let's say 110 million, as they are saying, records were exposed totally, out of which around 40 million were the card numbers and the PII data. and 70 million were records. So a total of around 110 million. So with respect to COVID-19, we are seeing a few of, let's say, these types of attacks where these kind of spam emails are floating around. Like, let's say this one says coronavirus latest update, the Ministry of Health, and they are saying that, okay, we have a few other recommendations so that you can prevent this particular kind of thing happening. And if you'll see at the bottom of the screen, it says coronavirus latest update .dat. So that is that particular attachment is basically a malware. And as soon as a particular malware gets installed on the system, it'll be able to take all the passwords, all the credentials from the particular system. Many of these types of malwares are also keyloggers, which will capture each and every keystroke what you're doing on your system. And just to highlight one more thing over here, and that is the basic reason why majority of the organizations request their ODCs, request their BPO institutions to actually go ahead and get the compliance, get the certification, and get their security posture aligned. Because if those systems, let's say the keylogger, let's say something like that, is installed on the systems, even though they are working on a VDI-based environment, even in that particular case, the entire data, the entire PI data will be compromised because each and every keystroke which you're typing on the keyboard is actually getting logged at the end of the day. Now, in a similar case, we also had one particular, let's say, a phishing attack in which it was impersonating as a shipment agency. So if you'll see, they are saying that we have changed the shipment, so please find attached let's say the updated shipment, you can say the updated shipment inventory and all those things. However, that particular thing is again a malware which was written in Japanese language. Okay. The next one is, let's say, an information which was sent to, let's say, Italy, where they are saying that, okay, we have got a supposed vaccine for COVID-19 and important information actually for COVID-19 as well. However, when researchers actually did a deep dive on this, they got to identify that it was, let's say, an information stealing Hawkeye Trojan, which basically used to inject the codes in the processes inside the system and used to exfiltrate the data via the emails and the mail server. So these are a few types of, you can say, attacks which are happening across the globe right now, which brings us to our major case study. Now, this is a particular case study which we have covered in detail, where again, an attacker is targeting Italy. And they are saying that, okay, let's say we have got a few recommendations, or let's say prescription that, okay, how exactly you will be able to, let's say, respond, or let's say be able to preserve the systems, okay, preserve their particular, let's say, servers and systems, and even the people as well at the end of the day, so that they do not get, let's say, infected for the same. So if you'll see this particular email, again, it has, let's say, an F216, something like that, .doc. Now, when it is doc, of course, people will understand that it might be a legitimate thing as well, right? Because .doc is something which all of us access every other day. However, a few of us know that basically this .doc also contains something known as macros as well. Okay. So what exactly is a macro? Macro is just a series of commands and instructions which somebody will, let's say, group together like a, let's say, piece of code so as to perform some, or let's say, some redundant task as such. And this is something which is written in your Visual Basic for application scripting. The same thing was, let's say, done over here as well, where as soon as this particular attachment was open, it connected directly with this particular IP, 45.128.134.14, which is an insider PP cloud app.net. And majority of the data was actually exfiltrated. And this is how exactly their IOCs also look like, the indicators of compromise, where you can say March 02/2020.jsc, log 0/2020.bat. All these different types of files were used. And accordingly, the account got compromised. So what exactly, which particular type of malware was used over here was a trick bot. Now, this particular trick bot is, let's say, an online banking information stealer. It means that it will be able to steal the credentials from the autofill data, or let's say from the history of the browsers, and accordingly would be able to exfiltrate, or let's say breach the data. So basically, it infects the browsers, the software apps, and different types of endpoint solutions, your laptops, your desktops. Okay. So this was one of the, let's say, very critical attacks which happened in the recent past. And lastly, we have a few like a ransomware, and that is how exactly a ransomware it does look like, where they give you a message and they say that, okay, I'm having this Bitcoin wallet. Please transfer the amount, or let's say this much 0.008 Bitcoins to this particular wallet, and accordingly they'll be able to decrypt the data, whatever they have encrypted around you. On the right hand side, you will see a lot of applications right now which are available on the Android, on the iOS application store, and which basically are ransomwares at the end of the day. So what they'll do is that like COVID-19 alert, coronavirus status and all, what they'll do is that they will, as per their description, they will show that, okay, they will help you in tracking the users, in tracking the people who have got infected so that you can secure yourself and something like that. However, as soon as you give them permission to your, let's say, storage and all those things, they will just compromise the data. But that is, they will first of all encrypt the data, and then they will be asking you for ransomware at the end of the day. Okay. So on that particular note, let's again pause for another 2-3 minutes so that if you guys have any questions, we can answer it. And we'll also take one of the questions which was there. That is, how do we use mail filters to prevent spam emails that keep being allowed in? So it entirely depends upon the source of that particular, let's say, the email which is coming in, right? Majority of the web filters or the mail filters which let's say are being given by third-party solutions already have this let's say as a plugin inside it. However, of course, you can add more blacklisting over there, that okay, let's say from all these domains, or let's say from all these email IDs, please do not get access to, or let's say please do not allow the any of the emails from these types of sources. And that is how most of the organizations are doing at the end of the day. Many of the organizations, or let's say many of these email content filtering goes deeper and go through each and every email and see what kind of patterns, what kind of things are basically a part of the email. Many of these mail filters also have, let's say, policies using which, if it is containing any of, let's say, such types of malwares or, let's say, trojans or anything like that, then they will just block the particular traffic then and there. So it's basically that from which particular trusted source is it coming. And that is the way reason why many of the times right now, when you open the mailbox, you will see that this particular person means the source, you can say the mail ID, is the very first time you are interacting with it. So please make sure that this particular person, whosoever has sent you the email, is legitimate, because it looks a kind of fishy. Okay, that's how most of the organizations actually do it. I hope I was able to answer the question over there. What kind of extra filtering can you do if you are utilizing a third-party secure mail service, such as Proton Mail? Now, extra filtering over there might be given as a service from that particular mail service provider, let's say Proton Mail or something like that. On top of it, what you can do is that you can have third-party solutions as well, the web filtering one. Many of, let's say, the latest firewalls also gives you mail filters as well along with that. Like Fortinet allows you to have, let's say, a mail filtering option as well enabled over there, because the entire traffic, of course, will be coming via your firewall. Similarly, the McAfee, the Symantec, the Trend Micro, and the others as well are providing you mail filtering solutions. using which you will be able to do the same. The technicalities, that is, let's say, which particular options to be enabled and all, as I said just before, that you'll have to monitor the source URL over there, the source mail ID, so that you can make sure that these types of attacks do not bother you. All right. Do we have any other question over here? Okay. So on your screens, if you can see, when it was asked from majority of the organization that, okay, what kind of tool do you deploy across the organization? Are you deploying tools so as to protect or prevent your systems, to detect or respond or remediate? Then you will see that around 80% of the organizations are relying on anti-malware, let's say antivirus solutions. Around 80% of them are relying on endpoint security, which is again used to protect or prevent. The detection and response are way lower than that. And if you'll go to the real analytics right now, when I say real analytics, it means the real case studies, because the anti-malware, the endpoint security, and all the majority of the cases do not able to detect a malware which has been custom crafted for your organization. So at that particular point in time, what will happen is that they will go undetected. So that's why you'll see that the threat hunting, the security analytics platform, the security operations and automation platform, the organizations are not even spending not more than 20 to 30% over there. So majority of the solutions which these guys have, okay, the respond and remediate is around between 20 to 30%. The let's say around protection and prevention is going on for around around 30%, and around 40%, or let's say around 40% of them are basically only detecting the solution, which is a real challenge in this world right now. So based upon the NIST and the SANS, how exactly they say how exactly you should respond to an incident is that first of all you should have a preparation phase. So that you can, let's say, detect and analyze the solution, whatever has happened. You should contain that particular breach or contain that particular incident first. You should eradicate and recover from it. And accordingly, you should perform a post-incident activity so that your systems, your, you can say your servers and all those things are ready and up for running. And also you need to make sure that these types of incidents do not occur again. That is something which organizations need to make sure at the end of the day. Yeah. So based upon these many types of threat vectors, based upon these many types of, let's say, threat actors, which, let's say, we have seen happening across the globe and everything, I guess we should acknowledge this particular fact that right now the common solutions which we are relying on, like we just saw in the last slide, like the anti-malware, the antivirus, the endpoint security, the IPS IDS, the UTM solutions, might not be good enough. We might not be able to save our organization's assets or even the customer's asset, that is the most important being the data, the information, just by utilizing these tools. And that is the very reason why the MDR, the managed detection and response, is there to help us. So what exactly is this managed detection and response? So if many of you would have seen the Gartner studies and all those things, around, I think 3 or 4 years back, something like that, they came up with the 4 pillars of cybersecurity and said that, okay, organizations tending to achieve a holistic posture towards cybersecurity should take care of these 4 things. There is the prevention, detection, response, and prediction. And that is the very objective of even the MDR solutions which right now we have across the market. That is, first of all, it will help you to prevent, it will help you to detect, it will help you to respond to these types of things, and accordingly predict as well, by giving a single tier approach. So when I'm talking about a single tier approach, it means that there will be a component which will be, let's say, a SOC solution, a security operations center. Now, Security Operations Center will be responsible for monitoring all the audit trails, all the types of logs, whatever is coming in and going out. Now, basis upon that, there will be another, you can say, solution, another, you can say, domain, which will be your automated incident response. So what exactly it will do is that it will use the underlying technologies, it will use the underlying, you can say, solutions, the policies, so as to perform a security automation of orchestration. Accordingly, it will be able to predict, or let's say it will be able to proactively identify a potential incident. And based upon the automated playbooks which have been configured on that particular MDR solution, it will be able to many times predict as well that, okay, these types of attacks your organization or say your systems might be susceptible to. So once we have seen the automated incident response, the next thing is the high fidelity threat intelligence. Now, this is something which is very, very important right now, and that's where the forensics come into picture. Now, what exactly they'll see is that which all threat actors have already been discovered across the globe, across the industry, so that they can make sure that your organization, or let's say your domain, is actually preserved, is actually secured from those types of threat actors trying to exploit the systems. They'll also go back and see that, okay, what investigations have been conducted so that those threats, those vulnerabilities can be a part of the playbook, and they can make sure that these types of attacks do not occur again. Similarly, they will also leverage the previously identified threats as well in the market, and accordingly will be able to help you across. And the last one being the industry leading reach back. So what do you mean by industry leading reach back is that they will have, let's say, many advisories or many direct contact with the major SMEs, subject matter experts across the domain, so that these subject matter experts, or let's say subject matter advisors, tell them that, let's say you are looking at a financial institution. Now, during the financial institution, what are different types of threats they might be susceptible to? What are different types of threats they might have experienced in their own environment? And that is the reason why today organizations are saying that if I have a particular technology in place, if I have a particular technology in place, so that I can gather data from, let's say, 30, 40, 50 different sources, my organizations would be much more secure. Okay. And that is how the entire MDR solution is formulated, where you have a security operations center, a SOC, which helps you in the security engineering as well. You have a forensics background, which helps you in high fidelity threat intelligence. You have a security analysis and data science. You do threat hunting using your, let's say, many different AI and ML solutions. You do an incident response, which is via an automated incident response via the playbooks, which you already have in hand. And then you will be having an industry leading reach back as well, so that you can connect with major security advisors at the end of the day. This is how exactly a SOC works, where it will be getting a logs from different types of, you can say, sources. It will be having a correlation technology inside nature, and accordingly, it will be giving you the results. Now, these results will be, you can say, analyzed and monitored by different sources, by different, you can say, things inside the organization, so as to make sure that you achieve the security posture what you're looking for. Now, once this MDR solution, once this, you can say, the managed detection and response solution came in the market, organizations also tend to understand that it's very important for even the endpoints to be secure. And that is where the case study came, which said that, okay, endpoint protection are actually replacing the antiviruses and are able to block up to 99% of the attacks. But even after that, organizations are prone to around $500 billion of successful attacks. It's a huge, and that too at an annual basis. And even this particular, let's say this particular study was basically in around 2 or 3 years back. So this particular data has gone way more high right now. And this entire data is just from the 1% of those malwares which actually got through. And why do they say that, okay, it got through? It was because the organization said that, okay, they didn't have the kernel level visibility. 87% of them said so. 86% said that, okay, it might be because of the cloud repositories. 81% about the anomalous behavior, and 76%, 78% around of them focused on the IOC, the indicators compromised. And that is the very reason why an EDR solution, endpoint detection and response solution, is necessary, is the requirement if organizations want to, let's say, make sure that the breach doesn't happen. So what exactly it will do is that, first of all, it will be able to detect the lateral movements, which I told you in the very starting is, let's say, a boon for all the types of different malwares once they have. It will be able to, let's say, even detect malwares from USB solutions as well, from phishing attacks, from malwares, from IoTs, cloud endpoints, encrypted data, polymorphic malwares. All these different types of things will be, let's say, detected and preserved if organizations are using the EDR solutions. So how exactly the EDR solution works is that, let's say, an attacker goes inside the organization and tries to compromise it. These particular solutions will be at the back end, and they'll be doing a real-time behavior analytics. They'll see that, okay, how exactly this particular kind of, let's say, infection or a malware, or let's say the intruder is trying to behave. When I'm saying behave, it means which are processes is it triggering. It will also try to, let's say, lure that particular malware into a sandbox environment so that they can see what different types of functionality it has. They'll also be leveraging the big data analytics along with the reputational analytics. Based upon these types of different engines, an anomaly or, let's say, an alert will be detected. And that is where your detection center will be playing a crucial role, where your threat analysis, your incident responders, and forensic experts will make sure that these types of anomalies, whatever is being raised by the engine, as actually are not false positives in nature. And they will be able to respond to the incident response team, the cybersecurity incident response team, within a 30 minutes time period, so that organizations can be saved at the end of the day. And as we have seen in the recent case studies, around, let's say, the exponential rise in utilizing the EDR solutions in the past 3 years have significantly increased. And that is why on the right side, if you'll see the thermometers where we are saying 7, 8, and 9, it means that, okay, organizations are tending to deploy more EDR solutions, and they are also the root cause as well for many of the breaches which are happening across the organizations. So EDR solutions are the one to go ahead with in the near future coming. On that particular note, we'll again pause, and this will be the, let's say, I believe the last Q&A which we have right now. So if you have any questions, you can shoot up right now. So in the meantime, we ask the questions over here. Let's see a few of the stats as well, which are right now available. So the first one says that, let's say, what exactly is holding the organizations right now in getting the full visibility so as to prevent, detect, and remediate threats. Majority of the organizations are saying the staff and the skill shortages is playing a crucial role, means they are not able to get the staff and the skill set over there. The lack of funding and the management buy-in goes for the second number, along with lack of workflow among prevention, detection, response, and remediation functions for the third number. So what do you mean by lack of workflow? It means that as soon as, let's say, a particular thing is detected, okay, how exactly the responders will be alerted, and accordingly they'll respond on the same. And then what will remediation functions, what will mitigation things can they apply so that these types of things do not occur? So it should be a complete cycle, it should be a complete loop which should be formed within the, of course, your RTO and the RPO which you'll define for the organization. And if you'll see that the centralized data, the centralized feeds, what the organizations were checking out, they say that around 70% of the data is actually available to the security analysts, and just close to around 60% is available to the incident responders. The administrators only have access to not more than 60% of that particular data element, followed by operational IT members, and threat intelligence analysts only have access to around 40% of the data. So if the threat intelligence analyst and let's say risk and compliance team members do not even have access to the data for the organization, then how exactly they'll be able to respond on the same, and how exactly they'll be able to help over there? So that is really a major fallback right now, which the organizations are facing. So let's talk about mitigation. Now we have understood that, okay, MDR and the EDR are the solutions which we are looking for. But if, let's say, your organization have an MDR, has an EDR and all, then what are different types of solutions they can deploy? So first of all, organizations should be more vigilant with respect to emails from untrusted sources. They should adhere to the security best practices. Now, security best practices are available from CIS, NIST, SANS, and the others as well. They should see that, okay, the educational security awareness across the industry will play a major role, so that they do not open these types of phishing emails. They do not open these types of, let's say, spam emails, which might contain a ransomware payload as well inside them. They should incorporate VPN, virtual private networks, and secure email gateway solutions. And they should implement DCP and DR plans as well at the end of the day. What are the best practices which the organizations can follow? First of all, the work from home practices, whatever you are having, it should be incorporated into the cybersecurity policy. It should be a part of the BAU, a business as usual, and you should not have just, let's say that, okay, I'm just migrating everything to work from home, and I do not have a policy around it. Because if you do not have a policy, then of course you will not be able to implement, or let's say maintain it throughout. This is the critical time when you have to say yes or no to the BYOD policies. Majority of the organizations are going for a BYOD structure, where they are allowing the users to, let's say, use their endpoints by their own. But that will again create a major challenge for majority of the organizations, because they might not be having that much solutions at the back end. So when I'm saying solutions, it means, let's say, they might not have a VDI setup. They will not have threat prevention engines, so that whatever traffic is coming from the host, they'll be able to detect over there and stop that particular traffic in the case of malicious one. Majority of the organizations right now are looking at that, okay, that particular endpoint should have all the patches deployed with the current base. They should have anti-malware engines. They should have this, that, and let's say n number of things. But if your organization is not able to detect at the gateway, once that BYOD traffic is entering your organization, then I guess it will be able to create a major exposure. Unsafe Wi-Fi networks will again have a, let's say, a plethora of threat attack vectors at the end of the day. Cybersecurity hygiene and visibility is something which, let's say, organizations are tending to achieve, along with the continued awareness and crisis management and incident response plan as well. So as CISO Ben Franklin may also say, prevent disaster by examining failure. It means that organizations right now need to, let's say, understand that what are different types of threats, what are different types of vulnerabilities, what are different types of, let's say, breaches are happening around them. And they have to take hold of this threat intelligence actively across their organizations, so that they can make sure that these types of threats do not impact their organizations, their systems at any point in time. Now, we have already shared our top 5 learnings from 2019 and 20. So if you want, you can get hold of it, and that is available from our marketing team. I guess if we have any questions, then we'll take it up right now. All right. So as we do not have any questions, so we'll just skip it. And if you have any question, then you can write it directly to marketing@sisa.infosec.com, and they'll be able to connect you with the consultant, and accordingly they'll be able to respond. So thanks a lot, team, for joining. And again, sincere apologies as we started around 20-25 minutes late due to some connectivity issues. So please stay safe. Use cautious quarantine facilities, and use the technologies, use the remote technologies as much as possible. So, all right, we have a question over there. Just will a good SIM product suffice 24/7 monitoring, or is 24/7 monitoring required? 24/7 monitoring is required, and a good SIM product will not suffice the requirement. I can go ahead and let's say deploy let's say a particular product from the top-notch Gartner solution. So if you'll see the Gartner Magic Quadrant, right, they have a few visionaries, they have a few which are stable and all those things. I'll go ahead and deploy a multi-million-dollar, you can say, solution in my environment, but that will not help me. That will not help me at all. Because if you would have seen our stats, majority of the organizations right now are saying that they do not have skills actually to go ahead and even interpret that what exactly that particular alerts, what exactly those things are telling. They do not have the expertise that, okay, how exactly they will respond to such types of, let's say, alerts. And even if they respond first time, how exactly to make sure that these types of attacks do not again occur in the near future. So because of these types of, let's say, challenges, it's very important that 24/7 monitoring, and especially by using an MDR solution, or go one step further and deploy an EDR solution, is required, where you have a threat intelligence, where you have incident response, where you have industry-leading reach back, and you have a SOC operations and monitoring. Otherwise, organizations will be looking at a major setback at the end. We have a question, but yeah. So if you can type the question, sir, I can see that, okay, you have one question, but I cannot see the question over here. So if you can type the question over here in the message group, that will be really good. Or let's say the Q&A section, that will be really good, so that we can answer it. One more question we have, that is it possible to control malicious activities or endpoints using SIM tool with log monitoring? So when you say control, it means detection. Then yes, detection is absolutely possible with respect to malicious activities if it's happening on the endpoints. Not just by using the SIM tool, but by using the EDR solution. So an SIM tool itself might not be able to help you in understanding if an EDR, or let's say if a particular desktop or laptop, or let's say an endpoint has been compromised. So we will suggest that, okay, go ahead for an EDR solution so as to, let's say, help your organization and your customers. All right, so we have a question regarding the slide of impersonating who, that is targeting Italy. The attached file extension is .doc. Are you sure that the macro will be activated if the file extension of the file is not .doc? If the file extension of the file is not .docm. Okay, so first of all, the extensions can vary greatly. That is, if I'm using, let's say, a polymorphous malware, at that time they might come as a .pdf as well. But when you will open that particular thing, that will change itself like a .doc as well. So I will say that at the end of the day, majority of the threat attack vectors right now, which are available in the market, do not just rely on, let's say, these types of, let's say, .doc or .docm. But again, coming to the fact, let's say in this particular case, if .docm was not used, then That might not have been possible. But again, macros are not something which are, let's say, basically a malware, right? Macros many times are used for legitimate, for trustworthy purposes as well at the end of the day. So organizations, or let's say the even the admins and all, actually use macros for daily day-to-day job functionalities. So it's the user's responsibility so as to make sure that which particular kind of file, or let's say what kind of attachments they should open, what kind of attachments they should not open. Now, how exactly an EDR solution over here would have helped is that as soon as that particular system would have established the connection with that insider PPP.net, they would have raised an alert, and this would have come as a part of the IDR solution, or let's say the instant response solution, and accordingly they would have got protected. Okay, I hope I was able to answer the question over there. How can we monitor whether a client card number has been leaked? That is something which you can get hold from a data loss prevention software, or even a data loss detection software as well, where you can, let's say, have policies around which what they'll do is that they will see at the, let's say, the learns algorithm or something like that. They will check and make sure that as soon as these types of, let's say, emails or these types of messages, or let's say somebody is even trying to send the particular data out from their endpoints, then they will be able to detect it. However, this will only work in the case the card numbers are going in clear text. If somebody is encrypting it and sending it, then I believe it will not help you at all. Many times, let's say the solutions, the DLP solutions, the web mail filtering solutions, what they do is that they do not allow even the encrypted files to go around. Now, the next question comes that, okay, if I'm not able to send the file encrypted, then what shall I do? They have secure file servers. Many of them use actually IAM, the identity access management, at the end of the day. So what they'll do is that all the files, whatever needs to be shared from their organization, they will always be shared via the file server. And via the file server, they will have solutions, they will have technologies which will give access only to the individual whom they need, or let's say who has the right to, they need to know as well for the particular system. Like, let's say right now myself, Kaushik, right? So if let's say XYZ client need to share some file with me, then they will first of all go to their file server, upload the file over there, and will tell Kaushik, Kaushik, I have given you access over there, go ahead and download it. As soon as I download it, it will first of all authenticate me with respect to my mail ID. That, okay, am I kaushik.pandit@CISA-infosec.com or not? Okay, it will have a credential as well around it. Now, if I have the same thing, then of course they will allow. Otherwise, they will not allow, because majority of the organizations have understood this particular fact that it's the mails, the emails should not be used to communicate any of the critical files whatsoever. Okay, so that's the very reason why, let's say, the organization should not be using these things. However, I hope I was able to answer the question over there. All right, so with that note, we'll just close the session. If you have any further questions, then you can just write to our marketing team, and accordingly, they'll get back to you. So thanks a lot for joining in, team, and have a very nice day. Bye-bye.